is nothing without the community. So this whole panel is about running communities and building collective connection. So I'm going to invite up on stage Arj Melvin. He's the founder and head of Coach Performance Physique.
Yeah. Well, I think, Susie, could we have that microphone here for Matt? Lovely, thank you. Hello, everyone. How are you all doing this evening, or afternoon still, isn't it? We okay? Excellent. Well, it's fantastic to be here in Amsterdam, to be doing the International Running Show. This is really what I feel all of this event comes down to, is about building a community, moving from these individuals who have maybe stepped foot out of the door to now doing something as a collective, trying to get accountability, trying to get some motivation for one another. And this fantastic panel here are hopefully going to be able to give us a little bit of information from what they're doing in their communities and how we envisage the industry moving forwards, and in particular, how we will utilize brands. We do want to have some interaction with you guys throughout this next 40, 30 minutes, whatever it is. And if you have questions, please, please, please do raise them. Just to introduce ourselves, I will go first. This guy has just been speaking at you. My name is Arj. I am a performance coach. For the last 20 years, I have worked with novices through to Team GB athletes. During that time, I found a little bit of spare time to write a couple of university degrees in sports science. I work in nutrition sectors, and I spend most of my time out on an athletics track. I met a couple of my heroes earlier, actually. They were over there from Team GB ages ago. Did you see them as well? Yeah? Excellent. He was good, wasn't he? Yeah, I grew up effectively on an athletics track, and that's what brought me here today. 20 years ago, I set foot on an athletics track as basically a part-time summer job to take some sports parties, and ended up ditching a law degree to go and work in athletics, which is a terrible financial decision. But anyway, it has brought me to this stage, so I am very, very excited to talk to you about the different things that I've built in the community on an individual coaching basis, right through to large-scale groups. It would be great to hear from your personal stories as well. So Kirsty, would you like to go first, introduce yourself?
Yes, so hello everybody, it's great to see you all here today. My name is Kirsty Woodbridge, and I'm the Global Head of Communications at the UK-based global charity Parkrun. And just so I know what I'm working with here, stick your hand up if you know about Parkrun.
Good job.
Great. Stick your hand up if you've been to Parkrun. Okay, still lots of hands in the air, brilliant. So what brought me here today is obviously to talk about Parkrun. In the UK where I'm based, we're very, very well known, but we're actually in 23 countries, and kind of Germany and the Netherlands is a big focus area for us in terms of growth, growing new events, and getting Parkrun into more and more communities. One of my reflections from being here so far today is obviously this importance around community and the boom in running, and how Parkrun can often be the very front door for people to healthier and happier lives, and it certainly was for me. And I would still absolutely put myself in that beginner bucket of runner, even though I've been running for about 10 years, I've done marathons, triathlons, whatever, but I'm still very much into this kind of community running. And I used to be really overweight, and I smoked, and Parkrun helped me kind of change my life. And there was somebody in a talk earlier on, and absolutely no shade if he's listening now, but he mentioned something around, oh, well, we're all here because we love sport. And actually, I think it's okay not to love sport. Like, I think it's okay just to want to be active and be active in your community and be social and be around other people. And I'm sure a lot of the tradies here will be interested in selling to that market as well. So that's kind of what brought me here and why I'm here.
Fantastic, thank you very much, Kirsty. We also have Sander with us. Sander, please introduce yourself.
Yeah, my name is Sander Hogendoorn. I'm a radio DJ at Radio Veronica. I just came out of the show at 2 o'clock and then had to race to the Rye, but the traffic was good, so here I am. I make a radio show from 12 until 2, and I play music, and I hope to get people through the day and give them a good time, and to connect them via music. And most of all, I'm a runner. And when I don't run, I talk about running in my own podcast, or I'm talking about running when I'm here at the Running Expo. I started out making a playlist on Spotify just for me, and then I figured, well, I might as well can make it public and see if other people like to run on my favorite music, and that kind of worked. And then I thought, well, maybe we can run all together, and we build like a sort of event where I would like to combine music and running, like my two passions. And then we started a podcast, and now it's growing. Today our website went live, and we try to make it bigger step by step, and that's really nice next to the radio.
That's fantastic. So your website actually went live today?
Yeah, it's upandrunning.run, and it's live, so be the first to visit after the talk.
Upandrunning.run.
Yeah.
As if that's a thing you can get.
Yeah, that's so
excellent.
cool.
We should try and crash his website, everybody. So just go to upandrunning.run. That is brilliant. I want to hear more actually about the podcast as we go. And also, we have Matt Borland. His photo, unfortunately, isn't on the screen. He's a late addition, but we really appreciate Matt stepping in. Matt, tell us a little bit about where you're from.
So I'm from Ann Arbor, Michigan. I work at a chain of grocery stores as the community manager and marketing manager.
There you go, Sandy. Yeah, brilliant.
Of where this works. I was an NCAA athlete for 4 years. I ran cross country and track for a Division I program in the U.S. Worked in a few different industries before finding my way back into run specialty. So I not only fit people for shoes every day, but I also schedule out and work closely with our group runs. And so I can speak to what it is like to be on the ground, to organize these things, but then to actually see how they take shape and how many growers over years in a specific location.
Awesome, fantastic. So we have the UK obviously represented here. We have the Netherlands. We also have the US here, and obviously, Kirsty, you are global, aren't you, with Parkrun? I imagine we've got people from outside of the Netherlands and Europe, outside of Europe as well here today. Yeah, excellent. Familiar? Did you put your hand up for Parkrun as well?
The first Parkrun was in Cape Town.
There you go, all the way in Cape Town.
I didn't know it in Holland.
Fantastic, that's absolutely brilliant. I think it's always important, as a coach, that is my background, I think it's always important to understand someone's personal journey, the personal reason as what got you to that moment, and that gives you a real feel for what we're trying to do and achieve with our own career goals, our business goals, whatever it is. And for me, I distinctly remember it was Barcelona, Olympic Games, and watching Jonathan Edwards, who's this British triple jumper, jump phenomenally. And I remember lying there. I know I look far too young to remember 1992. That's where you all, yes, Harj, I agree with you. Why does no one agree? But that changed things for me. And Kirsty, I'd like to touch on what you said there, just before we really dive in. You said that you do not like sport, and you had these lovely vices, if I could call them that. What actually brought you into running then?
I think for me, it's, and this is certainly what Parkrun tries to do, it kind of met me where I was at that time. So yes, I had never been a runner before. I still did actually smoke at the time, and I used to go home and have a little cigarette after Parkrun.
Is that your reward?
That was my reward. But when I started on the longer distance runs, I realised that was a little bit crazy. But Parkrun absolutely met me where I was, and I think it's also about the journey, but it is about people's personal circumstances. And I didn't have all the right kit. I was worried about coming last. There's no way I would have spent money on a gym membership or anything like that. Like, that wasn't for people like me. But I understood that there was this place in the park where I could go for free and nobody would judge me, and it didn't matter if I didn't come back, and people would be really nice to me and I wouldn't be last. And that's exactly what unfolded when I got to my first Parkrun, and I kind of got hooked from there. So I think it's okay to have these vices. It's okay to not quite be where you want to be yet and be on that journey, but in that community space, Parkrun really tries to kind of meet you where you are.
Excellent. I think that's something we'll dive into actually, about expectations and what Parkrun offers, which is maybe slightly different to my background in more of the performance realm. Sonder, so in terms of early doors, what was your running exposure? What really pulled you into running?
Well, I had like kind of the same as you were talking about. I was like in my youth, I was really sporting. I did soccer and I was really active skateboarding. And then I hit like puberty and I stopped on soccer. I started smoking, started drinking, and there's like a gap from 10 years that I didn't do any sports. And then in my 20s, I was missing something, and I started playing soccer again. And I felt devastated when the match was finished. So I thought, oh, maybe I have to do some conditioning as well and start running. And my first run was terrible. It was raining. I didn't have the right kit as well, just my old soccer shoes. And I had my iPhone up here, which I don't recommend. And it was raining all the time, and I think I ran like 1,200 meters and then was home because I didn't know where to go because it was my first run. But I started doing it more often, and after 3 times I felt like, hey, I'm becoming better at this, and this goes so quick. I can now go for 2K without being devastated, and then for 3Ks, and you know, so
Yeah.
it really it works fast. So
Instantly rewarding.
yeah, and then like after a couple of weeks, I can maybe do 4K or 5K, and it's like, wow, the progression is so visible.
Yeah, absolutely. Matt, first exposure into running then, what was the thing that really drew you in?
My father was a runner, and he actually coaches a high school team in the state of Wisconsin, the greatest state in the United States. But I went for my first run at age 10. My initial love was basketball, but then eventually when I was in high school, I realized that I would have an opportunity to run at university, so I took that relatively seriously. And I feel like I've experienced the far portion of the sport where perhaps are overly dedicated, perhaps running too much. And so I have a lot of respect for people who can go out to park run and just run their 5K and have a nice time with it, as opposed to have it sort of consume their life and their identity.
So when you were actually running for the university then, which university was it?
It was University of Wisconsin.
Wisconsin, yeah. Wow, that's phenomenal. So if you don't know about the NCAA, so the NCAA setup in the US, collegiate sport, you know, for some of the sports we're talking, in the UK at least, professional standard. This is incredibly high standards. These are the guys that get selected to go and represent. So that's a really, really nice addition to this panel.
That wasn't me, but
But you were exposed to it.
I was around.
Don't worry, I live off the whole Team GB thing for at least 20 years now. So I think that it's time for our first area of the discussion that we really want to dive into with you guys. And the point is creating communities that run together. What are you doing in your own areas? It's a little bit more different with parkrun, obviously, but what are you doing in your communities to help people run together? And we're thinking key points here are inclusivity, accessibility, and creating a sense of belonging, truly. Kirsty, lead things off.
Yeah, so I've talked, I kind of guess so far about parkrun at the highest level and kind of what we're trying to achieve, what I'm certainly trying to achieve through the communication strategy. But I think that inclusivity, that belonging comes from the parkrun communities themselves and the volunteers on the ground, and people go there and it is John from next door and it's Susie from down the shop, and they can bring their grandma or they can walk their dog, you don't need childcare, you can push the buggy, like it's all fine. So I think it's all well and good me saying what parkrun the organisation are doing at the top, and that's very important, but actually what's really magical about parkrun is this kind of cookie cutter model where they're given the formula, but they go away and sort of put their own magic sauce on it for their own community and what it really means to them, and that kind of reconnecting people that I think we've lost a lot of during COVID. So whilst we very much talk about parkrun kind of being the run, walk, jog, volunteer or whatever, I think actually what it also is, almost by accident, is this community connection piece that keeps people coming back because of the social side as well as the running community.
What have you seen in terms of KPIs, you know, the key performance indicators of parkrun, say since COVID, and obviously in the last 2 years, real changes in growth? What have you seen?
So my overall favourite statistic from parkrun ever is that we're really, really proud of our average finish time getting slower. So every year the finish time gets slower is another year that we feel has reflected our ambition to reach those that might not normally be running.
Yeah.
But that hasn't always been the case, and certainly after COVID we saw faster people coming back, we saw kind of the typical fit white males coming back, and we were like, that is great, but we're not all about that. And that's why we introduce things like Park Walk, let's rebrand, let's show everyone you can walk, that's fine, you can be slow, it doesn't matter, you won't collapse. And we do a lot of targeted kind of outreach into places where we're seeing those KPIs perhaps dip.
Oh, wow, okay.
Not as much as we would like, we're a very small team and obviously working internationally, and two of my lovely colleagues are in the audience, but for us, those KPIs are probably not what you would think.
Yeah.
And certainly for me, the one I am proudest of is slower and slower.
And slower and slower, obviously one aspect of it. Have you seen a development, particularly for me, what I'm witnessing, is in the age sector? Are you seeing things get younger?
Yes, and I saw in the first talk this morning on trends around the Berlin Marathon of not 10 years off its average
Yes,
age.
Urs talked about it, didn't it? Yeah.
And we had this period, which we were calling the Roaring Twenties, where actually the fastest growing demographic at Parkrun were people in their 20s. So I think that's a trend across the sector, but certainly one that we're seeing. And our gender split actually is mostly quite even.
That's quite rare then, the 50-50 split.
I wouldn't say it's 50-50, and women definitely register in higher numbers, but come in their fewer numbers, if that makes sense. So more women register and don't make it to Parkrun, which is why we try to have a real focus on over-indexing on women. But at lots of events, the split is very similar between men and women taking part.
Do you know why perhaps the registration doesn't match? Is that due to childcare and the expectations?
I think women just face way more barriers and maybe just need a little bit more help, and that's where Parkrun can really do more in that storytelling space of childcare is not an issue, it doesn't matter what you wear, you're not going to be judged. And we regularly survey Parkrunners who register and don't come to say, like, what is there? And often it is not feeling fit enough. So I think what all of us are trying to do on the panel is kind of create those spaces where those kind of things don't matter.
Yeah. Well, what happens to that data then when you've spoken to the individuals, they perhaps haven't felt fit enough to compete at Parkrun? What is the next stage for you guys?
So often they'll fall into some kind of user journey naturally, where we'll send them hints and tips or show them other people like them, try and direct them to the information that they need. We work with a lot of commercial and strategic partners in this space, and I saw another talk where someone was really kind of talking about the importance of partnering and joint signposting and kind of going back to that meeting people where they are. It doesn't matter if I sit here and tell everyone to come to Parkrun, if they don't see people like them at Parkrun or someone like them doesn't say it's absolutely fine, come to Parkrun. So I think that it goes back to that kind of meeting and where there's only so much information we can send.
Yeah, of course, we
need to meet people where they are.
Yeah, you're a charitable organisation, aren't you?
We're a charity,
It's a limited tools or set of tools that you're working with. I would be really interested to know what it's like here in mainland Europe, Sander, to see in terms of the way you've built a community and perhaps those challenges you faced. How have you gone about creating that community?
Well, I started out with a playlist, and then the event came, and I was thinking, how can we combine like music and running? And that was sort of the perfect match, because when you combine music with running, it's not about pace anymore or about performance. It's just about fun, and in that fun, we try to learn people something about the running technique. Just the people all standing in front of us. Lizzie, she's doing the training. And,
hi, Lizzie.
And I will be next to her doing the running drills. But it's mostly 80% fun and 20% learning something. And when we first started our up and running event, we sat down and we said, well, we want to make an event that is for everybody. Just like in Parkrun, if you've done 6 marathons, or you just started out running, or you have a dog or a child, that was really important for us. So I invited like my parents to the event. They're not the best runners, but I also invited people from my running club who run marathons and are quite good. And we try to make an event that's like for everybody, and maybe the faster runners do an extra lap or something, but everybody is starting and finishing at the same time. So that was really important for us, that it was for everybody. And also when we started the podcast, there are a lot of cool running podcasts in the Netherlands, but they talk about running in a performance way. So how to become a faster runner, and they talk about games on the TV, Femke Bol, you know. And we wanted to make a podcast that was just, we just want to go back in our heads like, okay, when we started running, what were the lessons we want to learn then? We tried to go back to when I just started running.
Yeah, so revisiting yourself as Okay, fantastic. And I would be really, really interested to know, like, are these events that you're running every week? Is it quarterly? How does it work?
It's a couple of times a year. So the podcast is weekly, and the event is like 3 or 4 times a year. And usually we have like 40 or 50 people attending. That's like sort of our max, because we try to do it with the 2 of us. And when you're upscaling, you need a 3rd trainer or 4th trainer, and then I think I don't know the words, but it gets too big, you know.
You lose the quality and the intimacy.
That was what I'm looking.
AI translator. Matt, so over in the States, then Ann Arbor Running Company, you've got that traditional model. I think the original format of running clubs, in my recollection of, the running shoe company has a run club which leaves from there. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, so we offer 4 different runs a week: Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday, in case you're ever in Ann Arbor, Michigan. But we partner with a few different groups and coaches in the area, and then we also serve as this central hub where we're bringing in brands. People are allowed to demo shoes, and we're able to sort of plan our runs based off the yearly calendar. A quote that comes to mind to me is from James Baldwin, actually. He has some quote, I'm paraphrasing, but the world is held together by the love of a very few people, and that's something that comes to mind when I think about these actual run community groups. We have a coach who has been putting on the same Saturday morning run for over 21 years. And there are people who have been attending that run with her for over 20 years. So when you think about your country, your city, definitely consider whether you can be one of those people who is not only invested in the place, but is also capable of showing the dedication to truly build a community. I think community is a fascinating buzzword, and it comes up all the time. It's used on social media in certain ways, but to be in one place and build relationships with people over years is what community really means to me. And it's something that I stepped into this role and I sort of observed the work that had happened before me, and now I feel that it is my job to carry it forward.
I can see you feel that really quite passionately, like that. Brought a tear to my eye, actually. I think we've all got something here that we're trying to communicate, and I'll tell you my journey with running clubs and community, because listening to you guys, and I am trying to walk this fine line between performance and creating communities, and it's always in the back of my mind of how can I make someone faster, fitter, stronger, and now I've gotten a little bit older over 20 years and recognise that it's how I can make someone better, and that better might be in performance-related goals, or that might be in community factors. And I remember it was 11 years ago I launched something called Friday Night Track Club, and the idea being, back then there wasn't really too many running clubs, and this was obviously on an athletics track, and I love running. These people wanted to run a marathon, and therefore I was like, cool, let's just do some running together on an athletics track. Oh, you've never seen athletics drills? Cool, let's do some athletics drills. Because I don't think, just because you're not an elite athlete, that you shouldn't have access to these tools. Everyone can benefit from them. So that was the first step. And then I started seeing a transition within that group, that it shifted from 90% male, and it exists today. We've run pretty much every Friday over the last 11 years. I think it's been about 3 sessions I've had off. One of those was my honeymoon. I didn't take the one where my son was born. I was still there that week. I love him. I do love him, Kirsty. I love him a lot. It just wasn't the day he was born, so it's okay. But what I did see was a transition which moved to what sits today at around 75% female. And we work quite closely with the council local authority in the UK, and there are obviously things that they're trying to achieve to hit their goals and their targets. And we did a little bit of a survey trying to understand why this group consistently on a Friday night was really, really popular with women. And it came down to two things. Men don't like being told what to do. They're not very good at learning. Hence why I run my own business. I've just realised that. That's probably a reflection of myself. But also, women wanted to train is a floodlit, locked track, completely secure. And Urs mentioned it earlier on, I think it was, about, and it was Gaum, I think it is how you pronounce his name, who spoke about creating a secure environment and community for women to be able to go and run. And interestingly, I have a runner who, he just finished Berlin earlier this year, and he's a very small runner, and he said, Arch, the situation is exactly the same for me. When I go out running, and there's a group of guys who are much bigger than me, it is really intimidating. It's not just women who face this, and providing a safe space, you know, parkrun, a community to do it, you have your event sonder, or a group-led run, it's providing security in numbers as well as a place of belonging. So I think we're all getting at that aspect that we can do things in a unison way to try and succeed in running. If we move forward to motivation then, so what do you think you are doing within your groups, within your experiences to help others stay motivated and keep them inspired for running on their running journeys? Maybe Matt, do you want to talk about this first?
Yeah, I think the most important role that I play and that my employer plays is just being a connector. I was actually just telling Sander, there's a gym up above one of our running store locations that's actually called Up and Running as well. And it's a gym that is specifically geared towards endurance athletes and mainly runners who are training for marathons and things like that. So runners develop immense imbalances between your hamstrings and your quads and your hips. You get overuse injuries, you get stress fractures, very normal events in the running world. But so I view it as my job to make sure that our community knows that that resource is up there for them, as well as know every single time that we have a group run available and all the different coaches in the area. So we have tons of business cards that we are passing out to help people solve problems, but also be closer and build relationships that can last them a long time.
So you've almost created a network of services to cater for the community.
It's very informal, and there have been times where we've discussed formalizing it a little bit more into like this kind of larger membership. But for example, Nick Willis, the Australian miler, he lives in Ann Arbor, and as he broke 4 minutes in the mile 20 years in a row, he went to this one massage guy whose name is Earl Wink at Performance Mechanics. And for example, like I go to see him all the time. He's a great resource, like world quality, and yeah, it's our job to connect them.
Is this Olympian Nick Willis, New Zealand? New Zealand, yeah?
New Zealand. My apologies.
No. I only say because I'm going to name drop. I coached his nephews. Sander, so for you, motivating and keeping maybe some inspiration within the running community, does it all go through the podcast then? Is that where the drive really is? Because the events are maybe more brief?
Yeah, we talk about motivation in the podcast a lot, and for us it comes down to being honest about running, and we all don't feel like running sometime, and we try to be really honest in the podcast that even we have those feelings, like we run like 3 or 4 or 5, maybe 6 times a week, but there are times we don't feel like running, and we try to talk about it in the podcast that it's okay. We try to give a lot of tips. So one tip I did this morning, I didn't feel like running, but I went out for 12K, and I always just get on my running kit. I just have to get on the running kit, and then I usually go.
Pretty quickly?
But it took like 3 hours. But I went out the door. But it was okay if I just hopped into the shower. But the rule is get on your clothes.
Yeah.
So that's one.
It's always good to do that before you leave the house as well, to get on your clothes, isn't it?
Yeah,
So,
that's really for running. It's awesome. It's yeah. So we talk a lot about motivation, and every week when a new podcast is uploaded, that is motivation. I hope for our listeners to listen to that. They don't have to listen to it while they're running, but I hope when they're listening in the car or at work or something, that they're like, damn, now I want to run again. Yeah.
And I bet that, if you survey just the 40 people, 50 people here, that I reckon that is exactly what's happening. It's the inspiration to go out and do the run. In terms of communicating with your podcast audience, do you have interaction? Do you have like a phone line or an email that they get in touch with you on?
Yeah, we have a Spotify comment section, but it's not live, but it's like the next week you read the comments. We have Instagram, and we every other week we have a part of the podcast where we answer listeners' questions. So people just send in via the website or via Instagram or via Spotify, and they send in questions, and people even like leave a voice note. So they hear themselves in the podcast, and last 2 weeks ago we even called, we rang someone up, like, hey, we're recording a podcast, do you want to be on the show? Oh yeah, I'm at work, but yeah, so we have that one-on-one communication, and I think that's very important, because answering listeners' questions, that are questions I don't come up, you know?
Yeah.
They're most like simple questions about shoes, about running in the autumn, running in the rain, you know, like really simple questions. It's really nice to get in touch and really the direct feedback on your subject.
I can see how you're using Radio Veronica's experience with the call-in and everything to create this, though. We do in this industry, I think it's really vital. You have to use your skills and your experiences from whatever sector you're in and try and link it within this market. I think it's a little bit different now that running is getting to this place where it's booming and it's really taking charge, but prior to that it was definitely about what can I use from this avenue to make my passion, the thing I really actually want to do, a little bit more at the forefront. Kirsty, now I'm going to speak from parkrun. I know that parkrun itself on a Saturday morning is the motivation. I know that being able to see X, Y, and Z, do parkrun, then go for a coffee and a pastry afterwards is a massive motivation. You spoke about no expectations. Can you go into that a little bit more? And is there anything else that perhaps you're launching or doing which would help with that motivation as well?
Yeah, I think, so for parkrun it's probably on a couple of layers. There is that regularity piece, exactly as you mentioned there. That's what I do on a Saturday morning or Sunday morning for where we have junior parkrun. And I know I'll see Bob and Sue, and I promise I'll be there, and I'll have my croissant and it'll be fine. But I think going back to that kind of parkrun meeting you where you are piece is that accountability at parkrun does not look like turning up and running 5k. You do not have to do that. If you are injured or you're not up for it or you're just starting out or you've had a really bad week, you can just turn up and watch. You can walk, you can volunteer, you can cheer on your friends, you can meet them at the end. You don't even have to complete the whole course. So I think you can go and still experience parkrun for what it is without having that, oh, I've got to run 5k and I'm just not feeling it. I was thinking about what my motivation is when I'm not feeling it, and I have a little tactic which I call the lies. And I have to tell myself the lies. And I say, just put your kit on, just go for 1k. 1k, and then you can come home, forget it ever happened. I never just go for 1k.
Yeah.
Once I've gotten out the door, I'll carry on. And I think we all have those kind of tactics. And often I go to parkrun, and my local parkrun's got 3 hills, and I think I'm just going to get there and I'm going to volunteer. I'm going to volunteer, and that's also fine. So I think you just have to kind of you have to have your personal strategy, I think, for putting on your kit, telling yourself the lies, but knowing that you'll be part of a community when you do it, and a community that will just take you as you are on that day, I think and I hope is really motivating.
Absolutely. I can see the appeal from that, because obviously I have a coaching group on a Friday night and we're out there training, and they talk about their motivation, and the reason they'll turn up is because they're basically going to get coached, looking at their technique, looking at some finer points, and then still on Saturday morning they're still all going to parkrun, unless it's off their program, which I said is too intense. But they'll still be turning up for parkrun, not because it's in their program or anything, but because it is such a fundamental moment of their week, not their running program.
Yeah, and it's worth saying as well, we do have people that turn up because they want to smash a PB. They want to run a sub 20-minute 5k. They've been training with their coach all week. They want to do it at a parkrun. They've chosen the fastest, flattest one they can find, and that is absolutely fine too. If that's what motivates you and that's why you want to get out the door, that is also okay. But where parkrun has had its real success, and why you'll see most of our efforts not focused on the sub 20 person that's running 5k in an insane speed, is because they probably are already active. They probably have a coach, they're probably in a running club, they probably have a gym membership. they're okay.
They're taken care of, yeah.
Yeah, whereas actually what Parkrun can do for the people that don't own a pair of trainers, that can't go to the gym, that couldn't do a coach, that don't have the confidence, it can just kind of quietly be there every week while they find their confidence. So it's not that we're not for the speedies, and sometimes we get criticised for that. Those people are very welcome, but where we can have the biggest difference is at that gateway kind of entry point.
And is there an application or something that is in the works to build positivity?
So we have officially acquired the unofficial 5K app that everybody thought was the 5K app. And when we announced, I think most people were like, oh, you didn't own that. So we are absolutely now, I think there'll be a big shift for Parkrun in more of this kind of digital space and how we engage people through the week, how we use the app that we've just acquired, how we kind of show up a little bit more in the tech space when I think we've been a lot more kind of in the community.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot to say, you know, if you are a brand or maybe an event organizer, about having the two in place. I think they do work really well hand in hand. If we move forward, I'm very conscious, I'm doing my usual thing, we're going a little bit over time, so we'll do this very quickly, this one. In terms of running events, any of you, do you see something that is maybe the new way to look at running events rather than, you know, we had 1.1 million people applying for 55,000 London Marathon places. Do you see something new coming? There's running festivals. I know, like you, Sonda, my favourite thing is music and running, so I always have a ghetto blaster playing Motown to house, whatever. That's always a nice thing to have. And in the last 2 years, the generational change, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, you know, the issues around COVID and socializing and building relationships, it's clearly had an impact in what I'm witnessing. Do you see anything different, any of you, in terms of rethinking events?
Yeah, I think people are looking for different running events apart from like your classic race, like run from A to B, and maybe you get a medal, and that was it.
Yeah.
That's really the old school running events, and you have like all the running clubs now with like a coffee and a pastry afterwards. We also drink a lot of coffee at our events. So people are looking for different ways to still run together, but the run is not enough anymore. The talking afterwards, the coffee is really important, or sometimes even you have like a brewery runs, you know, everybody's stepping in. So yeah, people are really looking for different ways to run, and then something else. Even in the UK, I'm really looking forward to visit the festival. It's called Love Trails Festival.
Yes.
It sounds amazing. You have like all these drum and bass DJs, and it's right up a hill, and you can run all day, and then you can party and sit by the fire at night. It sounds so good.
Sounds really good, doesn't it? Matt, Kirsty, anything to add on?
I would just focus on the hyper-local aspect of these events. So I was just at the Chicago Marathon a few weeks ago, and the types of brand activations there are brilliant and in some ways really inspiring. But I would focus on building events that either connect to these larger major marathons and things like that, or building something that a successful event might be literally having 50 people show up at it. It's not going to get Nike or Adidas to sponsor your event, but that is where community building actually takes place, and making that something that exists and becomes a tradition. So we need people who are willing to take the risks to start these small events. Parkrun started just one day, perhaps a segue here. But yes, it is worth investing in hyperlocal communities and events.
I think what's lovely about the running community is Parkrun exists within this kind of ecosystem of all of these other lovely running events, and people have so many options now, and I think most people that do start Parkrun go on to do something else. Like I went on to do way bigger and better things, and and applied and never got into the London Marathon, all of those kind of things, but Parkrun will always be there. And I don't think any have to exclude the other. I think actually it's this kind of big ecosystem of events where there are just so many options for people to take part, and that's probably why more and more people are getting into running, because okay, I don't want to run a marathon and I didn't get into this, and I don't want to run from A to B and get a medal, but I can go and listen to some music and have a run, or I can go and walk around the park with my gran, or there's a really cool coaching activity on a Friday night that I can do every week. So
Thank you.
there are just so many different options for people now, and I think that's really important.
Yeah, certainly. Sander, you're going to answer?
Yeah, hello. Radio Veronica. That's loud. I also think that the do-it-yourself part is really important, that like local friend groups, they start their own running club, just like 4 or 5 friends, and it outgrews the friend club. And we also have that in Utrecht. It started with 3 friends, they started running, and now it's a group of 50 people who just run together. And I also think
50?
Yeah, so that's really cool. And I also think the non-commercial part is really important. It's not for the money. It's just you just run together because you like running together, and there's no profit.
There's no other reason to do it.
So that's really important too.
I think you guys have just given me the best segue there. And if we look forwards, and obviously we have loads of brands being represented here this evening, with those brands, we know in 2025, moving forwards, collaboration is absolutely key. That doesn't matter, or isn't limited to just, say, an apparel brand. That might be coaches working with one another or teaming up with a certain running group. Collaboration is absolutely key, and there is some data which came out earlier this year which showed that a particular brand which removed themselves from running groups saw a significant market loss share. So effectively, we saw growth occurring as a result of this with other brands. They immediately snapped up those places, weren't necessarily as well established in running. But effectively, we see brands, as humans, we see brands that can be quite cold. And the requirement for you guys to be providing the warm face of the brand, the connection, the tool. So it might not necessarily be, like you said, Matt, there, providing you with equipment or something like that. But how do you feel brands should be really leveraging, guys? How should they make the most of what you guys offer? Anyone want to go? Go on, Kirsty.
I think, and perhaps this is some of my own kind of personal perspective as well as parkrun, but I think there's a lot to be said for not just targeting kind of the elite runners. I think if you look around here today, if you weren't in the kind of running space and you weren't familiar with running and you hadn't quite found your confidence, you'd find probably a lot of this quite intimidating or quite scary. There's lots of people that look really fit and, you know, I feel like I don't really belong here, but actually everybody belongs in running and everybody belongs in that space, and being able to target that market of beginners that is booming and also does real social good. Like, you are helping people, you're probably helping prevent long-term diseases and health conditions and diabetes prevention by enabling people that wouldn't normally be active to be active. So I think there is space within the running market to really pivot into targeting those beginners that might not quite feel like, yeah, I'm blood, sweat and tears and I want to wear all this kit, and they're like, oh, actually I just really want to get out the door and have a little jog and only do a K, and, you know, I'm feeling a bit afraid. So I think there's real space there in the market for that.
Just to add on to that as well, I think it's really important. Imposter syndrome, this sense of not belonging, not being good enough, exists at all levels. Like, totally exists. From, like, myself, I've been in this as a professional for 20 years with Team GB to the left of me, and I particularly had obviously I didn't bear my child, but I came back into the coaching realm and the front line 20 kilos heavier than the day he was born. My wife didn't, she was fine. She looks great still, but I came back in, and there was this sense immediately of, will anyone still take me seriously? So imposter syndrome is affecting everyone, so you don't let it stop you, just don't. And I turned up to parkrun to conquer that, actually, and it was really, really difficult because, like, I had a 7-year-old that I coached who zoomed past me, and I was like, actually, I can take some satisfaction in that. Guys, brands, carry on. If you had any more points you wanted to add on brands. Not from you, Matt, no? Anything from you, Sander?
Well, I think it's really important. I think you are seeing a shift, like the brands who are sponsoring really fast athletes, and it's all about fast, the performance. I think you see a shift in, well, if you look online, you see that the online slow running community is expanding. And there are more and more influencers who are making content about just slow running, do a 2 or 3K with a water vest, and that's totally fine. So I hope that those brands will maybe sponsor those influencers instead of I'm gonna try to run a marathon of Berlin in 2.5 hours. You can follow me along. You know, I hope that and maybe some runners who are a little bit overweight or something. You know, I really hope that brands will dive into that.
Maybe we've got some brands here listening to exactly those words. Can we say a very big thank you to Matt, Sander and Kirsty today? I think in terms of a closing line, running really is about movement. It's not just about health, it's about health in physical and psychological means. And I really, really see the future next year, the collective connection that running brings. My name is Aj. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. Enjoy the weekend. And Sander, how do I say let's party? We gaan feesten! We gaan feesten! Yeah, we party later. Thank you everyone.